At the end of this week, you are going to submit your complete Project 1 draft. It should be thoughtfully organized. You should have applied your peer feedback and my feedback to that draft, and you should work through all of the bullet points that you see in the Project 1 assignment. We've already spent some time working on the summary, both so that you can report the main ideas of the text to your readers and so that you can make sure you understand the author's argument. And then in your second draft, you worked on describing the rhetorical situation and how the author has organized the text to support their major claims. The final phase of your writing will happen in kind of two increments. One is your discussion of the major rhetorical appeals the author is using and what's effective and what's not as effective, and then a reflection section. In this video, I want to focus on these 3 bullet points, the parts of the essay where you'll write about the author's rhetorical appeals. So, to do that, I'm going to go over the definitions of the rhetorical appeals. We will do some annotation on the Jacob Brogan Microsoft Words Grammar and Style Tools Will Make Your Writing Worse article that I referenced in last week's video, and then we'll revisit where those go in your essay. So let's start just by going through some notes. When I'm talking about the rhetorical appeals, I'm referencing these terms, logos, ethos, and pathos. But I'm not as concerned that you can necessarily use those terms as I am that you can attend to the ways the author provides reasons to support their argument, uses maybe logical reasoning structures like inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning or syllogisms, uses facts or statistics to support something, uses narrative to and a lot of other things that logos can mean. The Nancy Fox article or chapter that you're reading for this week will help you think about how this term here, logos, means more than just logical forms like inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning and syllogisms, but how it can really mean a lot of other things. So the Fox article, or the Fox chapter, will help you with that. Ethos. When we write about ethos, we want to think about the ways the author presents themselves in the text, how they perform in the text, and also how they demonstrate their credibility on the topic or as an author. And we want to think too about how their ethos is evident outside of the text, meaning like maybe there is a reference somewhere on the web page to that author's credentials, even if the author doesn't cite those credentials in the text. We're also going to think about pathos, the ways the author is drawing on their own emotions or trying to draw out the reader's emotions, get them to connect with the text or agree with the argument or feel something about the text. And it could be that the author wants the reader to be angry. It could be that the author wants the reader to feel incited to act, to feel an urgency. It could be that the author wants the reader to feel sympathy or empathy. So we attend to the ways that the author is using those emotions and making emotional connections with their readers. Okay, so I want to demonstrate just a little bit of annotating for these rhetorical appeals in the article that we looked at last week. And I still have my annotations on organization in here so I can see all of these different layers of annotations. What I am going to demonstrate is just a quick read through. I am not demonstrating super deep annotation, but just kind of the first things that I notice. So you might have already jotted down some of the things that you notice about the rhetorical appeals in the text that you're analyzing. You probably noticed some things that really stood out to you the first time through. And maybe now, the more that you read the text, you are seeing different writing strategies and rhetorical appeals emerge as important. I'm going to just identify a few in this read through. So I'm just going to talk through a few of these new annotations and use those as a way to demonstrate to you some of the kinds of things that you might also be noticing in your texts. There's no way that what I'm talking about in here is entirely comprehensive, but I'm going to show you also a link to some other resources that can help you explore the rhetorical appeals. So in the second paragraph here, I highlighted this clause. I sometimes imagine a drunk composition professor rushing to grade a stack of papers late at night, alternately sobbing and steaming with anger. And over here you can see like my response notes to that. Wow, that sounds sad and desperate and incoherent. But I can't just use my reaction to that as my annotation. I also, in looking at rhetorical appeals, want to try to think about why the author is writing that in that way. So here I jotted down, I think Brogan is trying to highlight that sometimes the program seems to be marking errors just to mark them to get through what it's supposed to do. That it's not able to think about helping us as writers. So it's very impersonal and like hasty. So I think this seems to be doing two things. One, it's probably supposed to be kind of funny. We're probably supposed to roll our eyes or go, yeah, probably that's what the program's like. But also it's supposed to help us think about our experiences as students and writers, and the way that the program corrects our writing without making us feel like it's paying attention to us, which of course it can't because it's that program. So this seems to be an emotional appeal or trying to get us connected to his writing through pathos. A couple paragraphs down, I pointed out that Brogan is stating explicitly where he's including evidence. So that helps me know that what I'm about to read is a very clear example of his employment of logos or reasoning. So here he states explicitly that he's using that. He references the frequently asked questions page or link in Microsoft Word, and then the example that he gives is why this sentence isn't effectively representing a writing style. This whole passage where he's talking about that example sentence in the FAQ also is a place where Brogan shows his credibility or his ethos as a writer because he really breaks down how the sentence is not effective grammatically. So he explains the reason by applying his grammar knowledge, and that also shows us he's a credible source on why the grammar tool is not as effective as it could be. So he doesn't say, hey, I know a lot about grammar and I'm going to break this down. He just demonstrates that, and that helps us see his ethos as a writer. Okay, a little bit further down, I started to pay attention to all of the visuals, the screenshots that are included in this article, and that's something that I want to think about too when I'm doing my analysis. The visuals seem really important. They are where the author can demonstrate that the problems are happening in the Microsoft Word program. So I want to also think about how that works as a rhetorical appeal. Is it a kind of reasoning or example? Are there places where it might be emotional or might be convincing? So if you have visuals embedded in your article, think about those too. You might also think about word choice and how that is effective or ineffective. In this paragraph, I noticed that there are several words that show how the author feels about the program. He calls it frustrating. He refers to the program's hatred for a particular adverb. He describes the program as butting in, which makes it kind of personifies it and maybe makes us think that it's really annoying. So these seem to also be strategies for getting us to connect emotionally to the text. So visuals, word choice, those are all also important parts of the process. So once I have worked through my annotations, done several readings of the text, which you have already probably, and I've identified the major rhetorical appeals in the text, I need to compose a description of those appeals, and that could mean that I'm writing about logos, pathos, and ethos. It could mean that I'm writing a lot more about one than I am about the others, or maybe you see that they're all weighted kind of evenly. That's going to depend on the article that you've chosen to analyze. So this bullet point right here may be one paragraph, it may be several paragraphs. Think about how that organization is most effective in your draft. And then you are going to write these 2 bullet points in 1 or more paragraphs. Which of the rhetorical appeals are especially effective and why? Which of them are not as effective and why? So think about how the ideas you need to present in these 3 bullet points are best organized into paragraphs. Okay, I promised you I'd also link you to some other discussions of rhetorical appeals. So here you should be able to follow this link into a Google search on YouTube videos on the rhetorical appeals. And so if you need a little bit more explanation, I encourage you to check out any of these videos and learn from those examples.